The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, Monday Night Raw, review.
Welcome, everybody, to another great episode of W2M's Raw Review. That's right. We are for March 5th, 2018 tonight, and we are excited about this episode, Paul. I am, of course, your friend and, of course, your co-host, Gary Vaughan, and the guy I just called out is your host, Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And, Paul, I mean, we got a Monday Night Raw that kind of got some things heated up from last week. I know we were kind of intrigued on how this whole process was going to go down with Rhonda Rousey, and especially for the news that we got recently was the fact that she will be at every single Raw heading forward until WrestleMania. So that I think that's some good news for us, at least for the short term, right?
It feels a little bit like a mistake to me. I mean,
really?
if she's there every week, does it really feel all that special anymore?
I guess not. I guess you make a good point there. I just think that they're really trying to draw in the viewers, and I guess I'm looking at it more through an executive's point of view of that's going to keep people's eyeballs on Monday Night Raw. But you're right, storyline-wise, how much can you really do for somebody? And if you do too much, it's going to be the same that we talked about with Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy, right? I mean, you're going to give away the whole enchilada before you even get to dinner.
Right. I mean, the Bray Wyatt thing, like that's... I mean, we'll get into that, but it didn't get enough attention. I feel like this might get too much attention. I understand you want this to draw, but I think you want to keep that speciality there until after WrestleMania, and then I would have Ronda show up every week.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm talking about with the Bray and all that, it's about the fact that the physical part of it, we're already getting some physicality. I won't talk about all that, but that's my point. And but anyway, well, just to make sure everybody knows, there of course are other great review shows to make sure everybody checks out, and we appreciate you joining us for Raw. But SmackDown Live and 205 Live has some great shows as well. Go join Harry Broadhurst, Brandon Biscobing, and Liz Piglosi. They do such a great job on those shows. Also, me and Paul do NXT, so make sure you go check out all the great review shows. And really quickly, before I head on to the other stuff, I just want to make a good point real quick. The SmackDown Live crew, of course, Harry and them, they are excellent at what they do, and they're a lot of fun. But this last week, they were acting like that no one listened to. And I know there's a lot of people that do check out their show. So do me a favor. Get them another challenge. They want you to challenge them for basically letting them know where you live. If you live in a small town, even if you don't, just throw out some rinky-dinky town and just shoot it their way and let them know that, hey, we're here. So they're hilarious. I just want to make kind of my own side of this and kind of tease them a little bit. This is going to be so much fun to see how many small towns those guys get. I can't wait till Harry's response on the whole thing. So please go do that. You can use a comment on their YouTube or, of course, make sure wherever you find them. W2Mnet.com is a website where you can find them, and, of course, us. But make sure you also go subscribe, rate, and review over at Wrestling to the Max, the W2M Network. Both are great. Whatever one you choose, just go hit the subscribe button. And, of course, like I said, rate and review. Also, 411media.com and LastRunProWrestling.com do excellent jobs. And go check out their sites as well. We love them. Well, let's get things going here, Paul.
Before we dive into that, I want to give a shout out to my favorite city name in the whole world, and that's up in Canada, to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. If you're from there, please God, let me know, because that's just the best city name ever.
It really is. I was tempted after hearing Harry say, I'm just going to see if anybody will send me a message from a different small little town. And I was like, I'm going to look up one and just send it to him from a different account.
Yeah, that might be what I do.
So you got to do the Moose Jaw one. So anyway,
it's true.
Yeah.
Well, we got a whole lot to talk about on this episode, so let's not gild the lily anymore. Show opens with Kurt Angle coming on down to address what happened in the main event of last week. Triple H sucker punched him. He's not a fan of that. He's ready for a fight. He calls out Trips. He ain't here yet. Stephanie comes on down, brings up his job. You have alimony payments, your ex-wife, you have all these kids. You got to pay the bills, Kurt. Don't make a mistake. Don't be that guy. And naturally, this brings out Ronda Rousey, who, hugs Kurt and shakes Stephanie's hand and all this stuff, and Steph is like, things got out of hand last week. We don't really need to go down this road, and Rhonda is more like, you gave me this opportunity at WrestleMania. I can pick my own opponent, and Stephanie, I choose you. You are going to be my opponent for WrestleMania. And she freaks out. She says she's executive. She doesn't have a talent contract, all this stuff. Triple H comes out during this to try to keep the peace. And Kurt finally says, you know what, Steph, you do have a talent contract. So it's going to be you two, except I'm going to be in there too because Triple H keeps pushing my buttons. So it's going to be Triple H and Stephanie McMahon versus Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle in a mixed tag team action on the big stage. You have a big brawl here at the end between Kurt and Triple H that eventually engulfs Stephanie and Ronda Rousey because Stephanie keeps trying to cheap shot her way into the ring, and Rousey hits a hybrid sort of Olympic slam Samoan drop sort of deal. I don't really know what to call it, but boy, the live crowd loved this. I question having Stephanie get hit on, and I shouldn't say that. I question letting Ronda get her hands on Stephanie so soon. I feel like that's something you want to keep in the chamber, and pull the trigger on that at WrestleMania.
I agree with you, and that's kind of what we started the show off by talking about a little bit here. And, it's great that they have each other in the ring, and it's excellent that they are kind of conversing. And things are heating up pretty fast here. I mean, we're at the beginning of March, and we still got to get to April. And, sure, we know it's not very far from WrestleMania, but still, we're far enough away that you can start to stretch this thing a little too thin. And I think that they're already doing that a bit, unless they can find a way to hit the pause button. And I'm not sure that they're going to hit it too hard. So it does concern me that there is a little bit of an interaction between both members of each team. I'm not sold that that's a good idea myself. I'm right there in agreement with you, Paul. I do appreciate the storyline. It's very predictable. It's something that we have been rumored, to talk about. I mean, The Rock was supposed to be the opponent, but of course he's making billions of dollars doing his own thing. Millions, really. He's going to be billionaire pretty soon, for sure. But anyway, my point on that is Kurt Angle's fine. But the storyline at least is good at the moment. I'm afraid of what it's going to be if it's stretched too thin.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Kurt stuff has been building up for a while. So I appreciate them taking, if you can't get The Rock, you have the story with Kurt to work in, and that's going to work out just fine. The Ronda thing's a little difficult for me to buy. I understand they're trying to bully their way into sort of strong-arming her and to show her who's boss, and she's not willing to play ball, and that's cool, but it doesn't really engross me all that much. And as far as the match goes, this is gonna be a rough one for me, just because Triple H is getting older. Kurt is not what he used to be, although I will say he looked pretty good during the brawl here. And, you got Steph, who has never been much of anything in the ring, and Ronda, who will be having her very first match on a huge, huge stage. So many people in that building, so much energy. This could be either really, really fun or a big hot mess. Or both.
It's going to be a sideshow, and it probably will be both.
Oh, yeah.
I think at the end of the day here, we both know the two old guys are going to face each other. It's going to be just a lot of remembering the good old days when they get in the ring with each other, and then we'll kind of start feeling sad because they're not doing what they used to do in the good old days. Then when you come to the ladies in this matchup, you got Steph, who is not in the ring a whole lot, but she can hold her own. You got Ronda Rousey, who's just brand new in the ring, who can kind of hold her own, and I think she kind of gave you a preview that, hey, I am going to be a wrestler. I'm not just here to do arm bars. I appreciated that. So it's, to me, at least they're kind of showcasing it, but I still am with you on this. I'm a little bit concerned, and I don't know that this is going to hit a home run at WrestleMania. I just think this is a big attraction.
It is. It's a giant attraction to try to bring him in. So, we'll have to see what's going to happen going forward between these four people. Ronda on every show. This could get old fast, knowing WWE. So I'm wary. But as far as this angle goes, I think it's pretty well done. On the flip side of the show, in the main event, you have Paul Heyman representing Brock Lesnar, who is not here tonight, talking about what Roman Reigns said last week. And Heyman he runs down, it's his usual formula. He runs down how dominant Brock is, how Roman has also done a lot of the stuff that Brock has done, just, second. And, he's making Samoan puns and running down his family, and makes this connection to the Universal Championship basically being Brock Lesnar's bitch. It needs him, and he needs it just as much. And when you're a champion, you have to do all these commitments, which shockingly, I would say that Brock Lesnar has not done a whole lot on that end, but some relationships are one way. And eventually Roman, once Heyman has said his piece, Roman comes out and sort of tacks on that he will be here next week, and of course Paul says during the promo that Brock will be here next week, and that Roman hopes he is ready for a fight. So me sense a pull-apart brawl in our future here, Gary, but what'd you think of this whole spiel here from Mr. Paul Heyman?
I kind of have to say this. I appreciate his aggressive tone. I really like that. And I also love the fact that he didn't come out here to do what he's done in the past and all over Roman Reigns and say, well, Brock is lucky to be in the ring with him, but he's going to still win at the WrestleMania, blah, 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 blah. No, it was more on the angry, aggressive side, as if, Brock Lesnar's not happy right now. In fact, I'll say it, to be honest with you, I kind of like even the UFC drop there, basically saying they're going to bring the UFC title at Survivor Series to WWE, only for the fact that you're hearing all around the, internet and everywhere else you can read dirt sheets that, Brock's done, he's going to go to UFC, so this is the end of the road. And I think what this does is it kind of taps on that and says, hey, you think that, and we're going to do that too, but we may stick around, just to kind of tease people, right? To kind of bring the idea that, well, Brock could still win and go to UFC. Who knows? Not going to happen, though, in real life. We know that. So I appreciate all that. I think this was done fine. I really do, and it gets you ready for next week to see what's going to happen between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. So nice piece of business, if you ask me, for Paul Heyman.
Yeah, this is Paul Heyman Formula Promo 101, right? Lots of good stuff here. The energy, the delivery, all of that is typical, wonderful, golden-tongued, Paul Heyman. Great stuff. Mm-hmm. Roman's bit felt tacked on. Don't know if you really needed to have him talk here, but it does at least give you an easy hook for next week that, maybe there's going to be a fight between these two. Maybe there isn't ahead of their big match at WrestleMania, so I appreciate the hook. The delivery was sort of robotic from Roman, if you ask me, like he was reading off a teleprompter, as opposed to last week, which felt very natural. So, it was bad. It was not good.
Yeah. That's why I didn't even bring it up, because I was like, I'm just going to sit here and just talk terribly about Roman.
Mm-hmm. There was an interesting report floating around too that I guess we could talk about on the main episode too, but that apparently during contract negotiations with Brock Lesnar, he wants to stick around, and Vince asked him if he had any relation to the steroid scandal that is currently surrounding Roman, and Brock apparently admitted to having some dealings with him in the past, and this has sort of scared him off from re-signing. So that's kind of interesting to note here too, going forward with the whole talk of Brock coming into SummerSlam or Survivor Series or whichever one it was with the Universal title and the UFC title.
Yeah, you know what? That's something we'll definitely be getting into really heavy on Wrestling the Max this week. But I understand that, and these kind of situations are going to change the lives of these guys, because they now know that your career can be changed no matter who you are. So we'll have to talk about that. I'm really excited about that.
Right. So the other big talking segment on here too involves Mr. John Cena, who has been graciously allowed some time to talk here because he knows he'll get interrupted over on SmackDown, and talks about how, as WWE's only free agent, he's very grateful for the privilege to compete on both shows, and says that he's going to make history at Fastlane when he wins the Six-Pack Challenge, becoming the 17-time world champion, which would set a new record, and all this other stuff. And there's a lot of talk apparently in his mind that people will say that he robbed Styles of his WrestleMania moment, but he says if he does win, he'll defend the title against both AJ Styles and Nakamura at WrestleMania. So that's an interesting note there. He's eventually interrupted by Goldust, who is a bit of a head-scratcher here, but sort of plays up to the whole Hollywood angle. Cena's this big leading man, he's had this great story, and he's never had that. He's never been that guy. He's never had a perfect story. Everything's sort of been, taken from him, and he's sort of left wanting to just sort of break dreams and try to see if he can't find his way back up the ladder again, which I thought that was well done on his part. And I wanted to be noted here too. Cena faces Goldust here, beats him in like 4 minutes, as you would sort of expect, but he's beating an older person, somebody of the older guard, very easily. I think that's something that we should keep in mind going forward, because the story, of course, has been that he can't compete with the newer generation, right? He's trying to find his way amongst all these new guys to find a spot at WrestleMania, and there just isn't one for him, so he's got to try to craft one, and now he's beating up old dudes.
Yeah, that's the truth. And, John Cena's in this odd, strange place right now, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's not in any of the main event, honestly, strong feuds. Yeah, sure, he's thrown in Fastlane and blah, blah, and that doesn't... He's there just name brand. That's a good thing for him. Really, let's be honest. This is about him trying to find his new path and what he's going to be doing. And I think a lot of us are kind of coming to the realization this guy is going to be semi-part-time, if not, really part-time eventually. And I'm really kind of finding it kind of fun, though, to see him face some of these older guys that kind of seem to do something a little different, right? Not all about the titles. Now, he's talking about the title here, and I'm sure he wants it. That's very good on their part to make sure that they make that a thing. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of us, we just kind of feel like that's not really going to be the case. So I enjoyed this. And it really, honestly, is the reason Goldust really brought his A game. I really felt like he did a good job on the promo. Mm-hmm. It made sense. And not only that, the match was fun. Just because you kind of got shades of the classic Goldust a little bit there.
Right. And this is part, I think, Goldust, it really excels at. And if you ever decide to hook him up as like a manager of him trying to build like a Hollywood studio out of people, I think this could be a fun story to try to follow of him, maybe never crafting that perfect story that you get in Hollywood for himself, but maybe he could do it for somebody else. And that could be really fun to play off of down the road. Of course, this is just me spitballing, but I think the interesting thing here is what road do they take with Cena. If he doesn't win at Fastlane, right, that's another opportunity gone. It's another great way to keep that story going, too, of all this new talent is just that much better than him, and he can't find his way there. And, he keeps talking about making his path, and there's a big question mark over a lumbering giant over here on the red brand, and that's one Braun Strowman.
Mm-hmm. And that's not a bad matchup either. Let's be honest, John Cena matched up with Braun Strowman is going to be something that's, sure, not a lot of fans are going to just jump over their chairs to go watch, but they'll be interested, and I think Braun Strowman would be a great opponent for him. I think you're right. Like I said, we're kind of finding ourselves in a new situation with John Cena, and not really, just predicting right now as we sit here. I kind of feel like, which John Cena does not get the title, that means we're going to have him finally come out and say, look, I've got to understand I'm not what I used to be, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And then maybe Braun comes out and challenges him and say, look, I haven't faced you before. You take off and tuck your tail. Let's do this. So something like that would be kind of fun. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm okay with this. Like I said, John Cena is on his way to the sunset in his career, and this is what happens to everybody usually.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes. I don't get me wrong. I would not put it past WWE to put the strap on them and make that a triple threat. They love doing big match triple threats at WrestleMania for the big belts. And this is right up their alley if he wins.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I get it, and you're right. It's right up their alley. I don't want that. I just don't.
Yeah. I think everybody really wants to see Nakamura and AJ hook it up one-on-one. Especially, even if you're a casual fan on the internet, you have to have heard at least a little about their Wrestle Kingdom match and what they did over there.
Oh, definitely. I'm right there with you because, it's been really pumped up heavy, at least kind of shaded in WB, so that even the casuals are kind of paying attention to what's going on there. So I think it's going to be fun to have John Cena involved in things. Just not that. Just not.
Yeah, I get you. Well, speaking of one Braun Strowman, he's got a thing going on with Elias, and Elias earlier in the evening runs into Kurt Angle, and he's trying to get his match canceled with Braun because of all these various reasons. Angle ain't playing that game, so Elias says, whatever happens to Braun, it's on you, Kurt. All right, Elias, we'll believe that, I guess, when we cross that bridge. But coming down the line here, he gets the pre-match stuff again. There's a whole bunch of musical instruments in the ring for him. He plays a piano. He drops a beat on some drums. And Elias just really nailing the music thing. He must have been a musician before finding wrestling of some sort, because nobody can just really pick up instruments that easy unless you're just insanely gifted. So Elias keeps playing songs and stuff like that, doing his usual bit, and then tries to bail after all of his bits are over, run around backstage. He gets in a car finally, and Braun ends up pulling him out of it, and we come back to their match, which is a Symphony of Destruction Falls Count Anywhere match, which somebody called Megadeth, or song titles being used, but
yeah, really.
This feels like a Looney Tunes cartoon, Gary. Braun Strowman beats Elias by throwing a piano at him. Literally crushes him with a piano. He has to get dragged out on a stretcher. I mean, are we watching Looney Tunes while we're booking Raw, Gary? Is that where we're at now?
You know what? I'm not going to be one of those guys that's disappointed in it. I love it. I don't know. It really feels that way sometimes with Braun. I mean, it's really odd to me, but yet so refreshing that WWE is using a big man, a guy in his realm of size and, just complete strength, that they give this guy jokes. He plays pranks on people. He goes smash like Hulk, things like that. You just love it. So I wish they would have had a string attached to the piano. It just would have fell on Elias. That would have really completed the whole thing, right? But no, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you just told me this, I think, 2 weeks ago on this Raw review, that, you were totally cool with Braun just destroying people. And I was kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of getting old. And now here I am sitting here saying I thoroughly enjoyed myself. In fact, this whole segment felt like the Attitude Era all over again, because it was just gritty. It was just a little silly, right?
Yeah.
But lots of violence. And so, I mean, I think it really was well-rounded. I think the segment actually gave you something. It wasn't just, hey, I threw Elias around the ring for 5 minutes and then I pinned him. No, they went all over the arena. They went outside. They used instruments. It was just a good time all the way around, except for Elias in the end as he laid there. But, boy, you're right about the talent thing. This guy must, have had a really big musical background. But I didn't know he did that many instruments. I just thought the guitar.
Yeah, I didn't either. And suddenly he's playing piano and drums and all this other stuff. And I agree with you. The Looney Tunes, it's right there for the taking as far as that comparison goes. But this is fun. This is just a fun 15 minutes or so. And I might be a little generous on time with the pre-match stuff, but it's a fun little bit. Like this is really entertaining stuff. And I mean, anytime you want to break a piano on somebody, I'm down. Anytime you want to break a bass on somebody, I'm down. Just, if you have a big string and a giant pair of comedic scissors to finish the bit, I'm all for it.
I can just see Braun with those scissors. These are my kind of scissors for my hands. I love it. I love it, Paul. That's amazing. So, yeah, I mean, thoroughly enjoyed it as well.
It's awesome. Okay. We'll fast forward a little bit here with the Miz doing the Mizzies as he gets to bag on the Oscar some here, and he's giving away awards for best film, which of course is the Marine 5, and he gives himself one for he gives Seth Rollins and Finn a Mizzy for the best superstar that pats themselves on the back the best. Can't make this up. Worst decision by Raw GM, of course, goes to Kurt Angle for basically his entire run. And then is about to award himself a Lifetime Achievement Award. But here comes Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, and we start getting into a shouting match between all three guys. And and this eventually leads to Miz suggesting a Seth Rollins and Finn Balor versus the Miz Mirage match, which you can basically guess how this is going to go, because the Miz's fodder is going to take a beating, and the Miz is going to run around trying to use the numbers game, and that's what happens until Seth and Finn finally put him away. Rollins hits a curb stomp on the Miz to win after tagging himself in with Finn Balor up on the top rope ready to go for coup de grace. So this is, I should mention too here in the post-match that Kurt Angle ends up making the Miz versus Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins as a triple threat at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental title, which this is cool. If this is their triple threat title match, I'm all for this too, but it's a nice spotlight, I think, for all three guys. I think it's going to be a really great match. And the work here on Raw is good too. The Miz continues his usual greatness on the microphone, and the match isn't bad either.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. This is normal Miz stuff, right? I mean, he bags on people. He bags on the Oscars, like you said. And it was really entertaining. I loved all his references to those movies and just degrading them. I don't remember all of them, but I just know I laughed because he was just kind of clever. I'll be honest with you, I really enjoyed it. And the Mizzies are just a good time all the way around. I think when you get here is just the norm. The Seth Rollins, and of course what you got with a Finn here. It's just what's going to happen, and the end result was no big surprise, and it was just kind of there. I'll have to say this, I'm a little 50-50 on it, because the match was fine and all, but it was just so predictable that it kind of took me out of it a little bit. So I think decent stuff here, but the Mizzies themselves, I just thoroughly enjoyed.
I agree. I think that's a fair point. It is formulaic, but that's what you get in these Miz Mirage sort of matches, right? So they've spilled the beans on how that works for a very long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you thought Looney Tunes with Braun Strowman and Elias was crazy, put on your seatbelts, folks, because Bray Wyatt ends up squashing Rhino in about 45 seconds, but that's not the story here. The story here is Wyatt calling out Matt Hardy and says that the Great War is, of course, far from over. Matt Hardy appears on the screen and says that if they must do battle again, it's going to happen at the Hardy compound, Gary. We see Vanguard 1 flying around. We get to see Skarsgård, the dilapidated boat. And if you're a longtime fan of the gimmick, you're just so happy because it's time to prepare for Ultimate Deletion. And I'm excited to see it. This is what we wanted. But the story and everything going into this is just so flat, right? It's hard to get, I think, casuals and maybe people who aren't super familiar with what's happening here. I think it's probably a little late in the game to try to make them care, right?
All I have to say about this is... All right, before we get sued. Yes, no, I mean, this was, okay, in my personal opinion, after I started watching this, I was preparing myself just to be kind of ho-hum, whatever, here we go again, same old. And then we got all those beautiful visuals and the Hardy compound, the music behind Woken Matt Hardy as this whole thing went down. It was great. Mm-hmm. And you don't know the smile that came over my face, Paul. You would have thought that someone offered me a chocolate eclair. I was thrilled. And, man, it actually excited me. And I couldn't wait to talk about this because I think both of us really have, but I really have been bagging on it. Really kind of bored at tears with some of the stuff that they've been doing. Mm-hmm. But this looks great. Now, can it live up to what we want? I don't know. I really don't know. But the Hardy compound is the right place. You go back to the scene of the crime where we've seen, of course, if you're not a TNA fan, you may not have seen it, but you go back to the scene of the final deletion, just all the great fun stuff. And boy, I am ready to go. Right now, I want to see what they can offer. What I love about this, too, Paul, let's be honest, we know a little bit about the behind-the-scenes stuff, and we know that all the creators of the final deletion were in TNA, and now they are a part of WB. That's right. Everybody is here. Now, this can be a good thing and maybe, hopefully, not a bad thing where they can let us down, but I don't think so. I think it's great, and I'm excited.
we have to get videos of Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt preparing for this, of Matt preparing the battleground, of doing all these things, and like Bray like off in the woods somewhere managed to sneak into the compound and is preparing it in his own way. Like, you really, really need to build this up and make it feel special. And if we're not getting videos like we did in TNA every week leading up to it of him having Senor Benjamin prepare the grounds, or riding the lawnmower around, or just, these wonderful videos that really endear the character to you. If we're not doing that, I'm kind of going to be left scratching my head. And I know they're going to want to do in-ring stuff too, but God, just give us some of those videos again. That's really, I think, what'll help.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I totally agree. And, they really kind of have to do what they did in TNA. And I hate to say it that way, because I know WWE is going to be looking at that very sourly. It's not our creation. But, they really need to. I personally feel you even got to have a shot of Willow or something like that, just to kind of make reference to, oh, God, I'm in a weirdo land, right? I really feel like that. I think that you've got to do, and Jeff can do it. Jeff, yeah, he's injured, but he doesn't have to go and get in a match to put up the costume or to be a part of the Hardy compound. So there are some good things here. I'm really excited about it if they do it the right way. But there is a little part of me who's a little scared too at the same time. But right now, I'm more excited.
I agree entirely. We have the Bar facing off against the Revival in a non-title match. However, if the Revival win, they will get a tag team title shot at WrestleMania, which already kind of has you thinking maybe the Revival are going to get one up on the old champions, but not so. Sheamus ends up cutting off the Shatter Machine. Cesaro hits the Neutralizer. The Bar wins, fending off another great team. The back end of this match is really, really good. It's just sort of left you scratching. The Revival have all these wins. They've been sort of built up and recently, and suddenly it's all sort of for naught, So obviously, I'm going to assume this isn't over, and we're going to get more of this build up down the line, because the story does seem to be that nobody can beat the Bar, that there's not a team around that can. So are we bringing somebody up in time for WrestleMania? Are they going to face a mystery team? Is it going to be an open challenge? Are we going to get one of those famous 4-way tag title matches that we used to get every year for WrestleMania during the early 21s, or what's going to happen? I think, and that's, I think, what's kind of interesting about this decision here.
I'm right there with you on that, because of the fact that, like you said, they built the Revival up and then they quickly put them, in their place. I look at this as a situation where you still have the Revival in this. They did a great job in this match. They were hard hitting. You could just see the chemistry right away between these two tag teams. It was great, and I want more of it. I really, really do. Will they give it to us? I think they will. I really believe they see it too. And I think that there's a lot of storyline you can put here, because they constantly have the Revival on the mic, backstage. You go to WWE.com or you go to their YouTube channel, and the Revival's all over that, man. And there's a reason for that. That's because these guys are great at what they do and talking themselves up. And, go in there now, you'll see another one where they say this is just something that they're going to get past and move on, and they're going to be, they already are top guys. So I think, man, sure, they did get put in their place, but I feel like the Revival still has momentum. And Sheamus and Cesaro, they should be beating everybody. They should be, because they're the champs, and they should be proving that, hey, we're no one to mess with. And I'm glad, because now it makes me feel like Cesaro and Sheamus are still as serious as ever.
Yeah, I agree. This really fits the bill, I think. And like you said, if we get more of these two down the line, that's great. If we're bringing somebody else into the picture, that's fine too. But if we get another Bar Revival straight up 2-on-2 match, I really hope they get a chance to let go. Like they can probably put on something pretty awesome.
Oh boy, if let's just be honest, if they get a match at WrestleMania,
oh boy,
I'm gonna say this right now, it could be a show stealer.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Even though that Styles Nakamura, that's a tough act to beat.
It will be, but it'll be very much in the people's mouths if it happens.
Oh yeah, I agree. So I saved the ladies for last because they have a whole bunch of stuff going on their two big stories here. First up, you have Asuka taking on Nia Jax here. And this is sort of interesting because the focus isn't on Asuka. even though she does win here. She maintains her submission hold. Jax continues to sort of fight, and she finally has to tap out. And this is sort of your usual match, I think, between the two. You get a lot of Nia dominating, Asuka hanging in there, getting her attacks in and all that, and managing to sort of basically wiggle her way into a victory because she's that good, right? Mm-hmm. Commentary and the match layout and everything like that is all about Nia. Nia is this. We got, she's so strong. She's so powerful. She's got all these great things going on, and she's the narrative they're pushing here, not Asuka. So, does this lend credence to Asuka choosing Charlotte to face at WrestleMania? And we're gearing Nia up? Because that's kind of the direction you have to take, I think, after seeing this match. And especially in the segment we're going to talk about after this, too.
I agree with you. And, basically for the last, I think, 3 weeks, me and you have been discussing this and talking about how we felt like Nia Jax was going to be, possibly thrown into, in an Asuka Bliss match. Mm-hmm. Not going to happen most likely now. And I think that they showed you a lot of reasons why on this episode of Raw. I think we got a sneak peek into that view of what they're really wanting to do. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's a bad idea because of what they're brewing here. We'll get more into that as we talk about this stuff. But I think it's clear Asuka is probably going to go for Charlotte because Charlotte really doesn't have a big picture right now. She has no one else over on the SmackDown Live roster besides Ruby Riott to really face that would matter. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big deal, and I love the idea what they're brewing here between Nia and her best friend Bliss. So this is it really doesn't bother me, and I think this is a fine match. I love the emotions. I'll kind of get out of the way, but there's more I want to talk about.
Right. So in this angle that they follow up with later on in the show, Alexa meets with Nia and says that, you lost to, Asuka at Elimination Chamber and tonight, and that had to be embarrassing, right? But you shouldn't feel like a failure, Nia, because I know that next year you can make WrestleMania. You can be on the big stage, just not this year. And I know you've been outcast and all this other stuff because you've always been bigger and all this other stuff, and now you have people believing that you're a quitter, but I don't want you to give up, because if you do, everybody's going to lose respect for you. And this savagely brutal pep talk makes poor Nia cry. You kind of have to feel for her a little here, because obviously Alexa's a shitty friend right now, but this is really interesting. This really does make it feel like it's going to be Alexa trying to fend off Nia now with Mickie James at her back, and it's just not going to be enough.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I think Alexa's had some practice with this, possibly in her real life. I don't know. It seems like it, man.
It's so natural for her. That's what's the best part about this.
It's true, and think about so her breaking up with some dude. I mean, I'm sure he probably went home feeling like he was the smallest person in the world.
That poor guy.
And she's like I think she's 5 foot or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, making Nia Jax cry, making her weep on national television, putting her in that place, not a great idea for Alexa Bliss, because once you bring out those kind of emotions, and anybody who's at that size, at that strength, is usually a scary situation. So I love the emotion, though. I think Nia Jax did a great job here. Really selling. Yeah. Oh, my God. I mean, just a wonderful. I don't think she's going to get enough praise for that, but she really, really did a good job. I think in the end here, though, this is going to work out wonderfully. I really do. And actually, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of excited about next week's Raw and seeing how this is all addressed.
I agree. This is sort of interesting, and this leaves a lot open on the other side of this story, because Bayley is interviewed earlier in the evening talking about how she refused to tag in to Sasha during the tag match last week, the six woman tag, and she's having trouble accepting what Sasha has done to her on the big moments this year so far, the Elimination Chamber, the Royal Rumble. she's cost her everything. And this is when Absolution shows up, and Paige, you finally get it now, is what Paige tells her. You're growing a backbone. You're realizing that you're a big girl, that the world isn't this happy place that you've made it out to be. And the only thing you haven't learned yet, though, is that there's strength in numbers. And if you have no one, you have nothing to rely upon. And Bayley ends up facing Mandy Rose later on in the evening. She ends up winning in a little over 9 minutes. You have Absolution attack her post-match, and Sasha comes out for the save. And as looks to Bayley for a hug at the end, Bayley just sort of shoves her away and leaves. So there's a whole lot going on here. Not only does it look like Bayley is going to be the one to turn, which is the way more interesting option, even though I think Sasha's a better heel. With Paige on the shelf, this could end up her being sort of manipulated into being the front runner, right, for Absolution and setting up a whole feud there later on down the road. There's so many options with the way they've gone with the women's division right now, and pushing these two big narratives is just a really choice move, right? Because they always either focus on the title or nothing else, and now you have this one with all this history, and you have the title feud. It's just this is really great turnaround booking for the women's division in the last couple of weeks. I got to give them credit.
They've definitely done a wonderful job, and this story alone is something that I think we've wanted to kind of see come to fruition, and it kind of is. And I feel like right now it's going a little bit different than I expected. Like you mentioned, it's not exactly, the boss, Sasha Banks being the boss. It's more about Bayley kind of turning a little bit here to that whole, don't touch me. I'm going to handle my own stuff. It's kind of odd way of, doing things for her personality. So I think it's kind of, intriguing. I really still feel like, Sasha needs to be the heel in this, though. I really feel like if they really want to win people over, that's the way you go. You go on her strength. I think Bayley, it's okay that she has an edge. In fact, that's what we kind of screamed about at the end of her NXT career is give it Bayley an edge, right? Make her aggressive. Don't just make her this powder puff girl. Make her, something that's and at the same time wants to hug you. So I want that still. If it doesn't go that way, Paul, and if you're right, and if we have Bayley turning heel and Sasha's kind of still what Sasha is, I think it's an intriguing new thing that they're doing, and it could work very well, or it could fall on its face. But I just wish they would stick to the strength so we could see what we want to see, and that's an excellent match between these two.
I think we're going to get a match still, right? It's just going to be with sort of the role switched of Bayley being the more heelish character, which is so interesting to me just because we haven't seen that side of her yet. We don't know what she can pull off working as a heel, if that's the way they're going to go. Even if it's a heel sort of by association and manipulation and she's just sort of being led down the wrong road, that's infinitely more interesting than her just being a bad guy. Now she has... all this depth of, she's really walking down the wrong path. And, it's not really an anti-hero, but it is more of like a tweener looking at the black side and going, that looks all right. So I really like this idea. I want to see it play out and, all that, even though we know what we could get if it was Sasha being the one that turns. I think the question mark of Bayley is more intriguing as far as TV goes, just because if you've been a long-time viewer, you sort of know what that side is, and it's great, but we don't, what if this other side turns out to be better,
Yeah, you could be right, and maybe I'm not so optimistic about it, but hey, I'll be willing to come on here and say I was completely wrong if they blow us out of the water with a heel Bayley, and I'm cool with something new. I really am. I just am very fearful that it's going to fall on its face because I worry that, Bayley hasn't had exactly the success we were expecting her to have coming into the company, coming into at least the main brand. And so I think that, we can get some good stuff coming forward out of this. I need to be a little bit more optimistic on this whole process. And, I think Bayley would do herself a lot of good by calling her friend Stone Cold Steve Austin and really picking his brain about being a heel. I think that'd be a good idea on her part.
I agree. And it's a great man once said, given the chance, always party with Dr. Strangelove. So that's everything on this episode of Raw. We went a little longer than we have recently, but there's a lot to dive into. And with all of the being said, Gary, we just got to put a number on this bad boy. So what you gonna give it?
Yeah, you know what? You're right. It was a longer one, and I apologize if people expected just an hour or less than an hour. But, there was a lot of good things coming out of the show, to be honest with you. I was happy with the majority of it. I think that they really gave us a lot of depth to the stories that they were wanting us to understand, to get across to us, for us to have that bigger picture of WrestleMania, what could be taking place there. You still got to love the fact that, the tag team division is doing well. You love the fact that these ladies are really getting into some good stuff when it comes to storytelling and just everything else on the show. The Mizzies, it all worked out well. I was very entertained. I am going to go, I'm going to be honest, it's been a little bit better than usual. 7.5. I really enjoyed myself watching Raw.
This is a really great episode, I think, from a storytelling standpoint. They've opened so many doors. You have a lot going on across the entire show. Everything is very focused. It has a point. I say this often about Raw, but it's not every day you get that with 3-hour shows. So, I don't know if I'm going to go 7.5. I was thinking more along the lines of a 7, personally, just because there's not a really great standout wrestling match on here. But there is a lot of good wrestling and solid wrestling, and obviously you can't really sniff at that. But the storytelling is on point here, and that's what you're going to watch this for. A lot of great segments, and a lot of booking towards WrestleMania a month out, which I can't really remember the last time WWE did this. Right? It always feels so rushed at the end.
Yeah, you're right. And now we're getting a little nervous because we're not used to seeing it.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, we've had a lot of fun. And, of course, hey, people, make sure you tune in next week when we do the next Raw review. We'll have hopefully another great show to talk about then. This has been a lot of fun, though. Really enjoyed it. I hope you guys come back and check us out on W2Mnet.com or, go subscribe, rate, and review over at Wrestling with Max or the W2M Network, wherever you find podcasts. Whatever platform you're using, just go hit that subscribe button. And, hey, make sure you give our friends over at 411mania.com and Last Word on Pro Wrestling.com some love as well. They are great supporters of ours, and we want to support them. And for us, I am Gary Vaughan. He is Paul Leazar, and we will catch you guys down the road.
Have a good one, guys.
The previous podcast is a W2Mnet.com original podcast. For more great content like this, go to W2Mnet.com for the worlds of wrestling, video games, entertainment, and sports.